everyone. This is Stephanie Mann at the Safe Kids Now show. And I'm so excited today because we have a very interesting guest. And her name is Tara Farrar. And she is the founder of We Are the Children of the World. And they feature canines that's saving kids. So let's welcome Tara Farrar. Hello, Tara. Welcome. We're so glad to have you today. And
Thank
I'm
you,
so
Stephanie.
excited to learn much more about how in the world did you start and you're a founder of Canines Saving Kids. So we're anxious to hear all about it. So tell us.
Well, first of all, Stephanie, thank you for having me on. And it is a joy to speak with someone who has an understanding of what's going on out there in the world with regards to our children. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you as well have found, as you speak about the subject matter of the devastation and the horrific things that are occurring, that people do this. They cover their ears, or they don't want to
Yes.
see it, or they for sure don't want to talk about it. And as I call it falling down into the rabbit hole, as I fell down into the rabbit hole and was researching and coming to this realization of the depth of which this $150 billion a year industry goes, was sexually exploiting children, I found people weren't able to do this. And, as I continued my research, I came across dogs that are specifically trained to serve on internet crimes against children task forces.
Wow.
And then this light bulb went on, and it's like, oh, let the canines be the messenger of the message.
Good. I like that.
Yeah, because people, when you start talking about dogs, they go, oh, oh. And then as I unfold the story and what's going on with the children and how the dogs are serving a very vital and important role on these task forces, I find that people it's easier for them to hear it, easier for them to perhaps share the story, etc. And that's what brought us together.
Oh, I love it. I think anytime people talk about dogs, it brings people together. And so tell us, how did you happen to get started in actually working in this field? What was the big inspiration for you?
Well, I am blessed to have a particular person in my life who is serving in her own unique capacity with investigations. And as she began to she dropped seeds, along the way. And I use this analogy, Stephanie, but it really has a lot of truth to it too. It's as if one day I was tapped on the shoulder, and it was like I use the analogy of an angel wing. I was tapped on the shoulder and I heard, "Will you do this?"
Oh.
And it was like, yes. And I had no idea what the yes was, or do this. I had no idea what that was. And I just allowed it to continue on to unfold. And that's when I founded We Are the Children of the World.
Wow. You mean that it was kind of divine intervention?
It was.
I love it.
And it's something much, much bigger than myself. And at this point in my life, it's like I've done all the normal stuff, that we are brought up to think is part of living. But it felt like, okay, I want this to be the legacy I go out on. I can take off my headset. We don't need that. Have it be part of my legacy.
Great. Well, now, how did you actually get started with this? Because, I mean, you have a great idea. You're inspired to do it. What's the first step? What did you do?
What was the first step? Well, I have an extensive background in working with clients in developing their online strategies, their marketing strategies, their products, their programs, working with authors, etc. So I just had to take that mirror and turn it back on myself and just ask, what is it, now that I'm gathering this information, how do I desire to bring it out into the world. What are the ways in which to do that? And so I just implemented a lot of this strategies that I coach people on all the time. And so the first step was a website. So we got the website done, and then it was the branding and the logo, and it was serendipitous.
So how did the dogs come into this? How did that work?
So I'll talk to you about their role. How about if we do that?
Okay, great.
All right. So dogs are specifically trained on how to sniff out the scent that electronic devices put out. It can be SIM cards, those little itty bitty titty tiny SIM cards, which hold tens of thousands of images and videos of children being raped and exploited, etc.
Yes.
So it's those little tiny SIM cards, the thumb drives, of course, cell phones and laptops, but predators, the consumer, predator is the consumer of that, as well as the traffickers selling it because there's a demand for it. They store it on these small, tiny devices because they can hide them. And when a warrant is served and you have a task force coming in, they can't find it with the human eye. But the dogs can find them.
So they're trained to sniff it out.
They are trained to sniff it. We have canines that are trained to sniff out drugs at the airport. We have canines that are trained for explosive devices, which they use in the various wars across the world. But these dogs are trained to smell out the scent. And I'll tell you, the scent comes from the silicone that is used in these devices.
Wow. So they can smell that silicone. Give us an idea, because some people may not know how small these chips are.
Well, if you were to open up the back side of your phone and that little teeny, like I said, that little teeny tiny SIM card that's in there with all your photos and everything else you have stored on it, that's a SIM card.
Okay.
SIM cards are also used in digital cameras. You know how you pull out maybe a bigger one, but you pull it out and you stick it in, into your computer so you can download the images or the videos. Those are all SIM cards. And then, of course, there's the thumb drives. And those have
ones you plug in.
Those you plug in, but inside of there, silicone is being used. And so and I'll give you a perfect example. So there is a pedophile activist who was recently, at the time of this recording, was recently caught down in Mexico City. And when the police went into his apartment, they couldn't find anything, but one of these specially trained canines was brought in from the United States and buried within a laundry basket of dirty, rancid clothes. And the report actually said rancid. Dirty, rancid clothes was this tiny little SIM card.
No way.
Which was the part of the evidence. And they found others that were taped to the wall behind pictures. They found thumb drives. I mean, these can be hidden like inside a book. They can be hidden inside the binding of the book, where you kind of pull back the binding and stick in the SIM card. So, a human would look at the book and kind of flip through the pages and nothing falls out on a typical warrant search. But the canine can find it.
Well, now, how in the world do they train all these dogs? And how many dogs are there that actually do this?
Well, they're trained by one company here in the United States. And interestingly enough, they're Labradors or Labrador mixes. Okay. And the reason for that is that particular breed is very reward oriented. So when they find it, they're given, a treat. And so then they're excited to go find something else so they can get the treat. And so they're reward initiated, but they're Labradors. They're specifically trained, and these dogs are only available for the Internet Crimes Against Children. The initials are ICAC, task forces. There currently are 61 national task forces across the United States. And right now, I think there's about 40 dogs that have been trained, and so there's more to be trained. And then a handler is brought in that is designated by the task force to be brought in and get trained, and trained mostly on how to read the signals that the dog is providing. It could be that they sit on the floor and look up at you, or perhaps they lay down. So they will have their signs, and the handler needs to learn what are those signals.
Now, this is very exciting because I do work with the Las Vegas. We're addressing or trying to address some of the child sex trafficking problems in our area, which are extensive.
Yes.
And I did ask about it, and we do not have a dog or someone in this area that can actually sniff out these SIM cards. So how would one find any information, or where would you go to find information about how to acquire a dog?
So it's a very intricate process, and I would just suggest you have somebody email me and contact me, and then those doors can get opened and the conversation can begin.
Okay, give us your contact information so we don't
Sure.
lose that, so that if anybody is interested, because I do have people that I think are going to be interested. So how would they contact you, Tara?
It's support at wearethechildren.world. Support at wearethechildren.world. And that'll come directly to me.
Okay.
And I have another exciting example I want to use of where canine was utilized. So
Tara, before you get, we all want to hear that, but I would like to take just a quick break for a short commercial.
Okay.
And when we come back, Tara's going to give us another example of how these dogs work and how successful they are. So we'll be right back.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio. You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website www.aaumedia.com. Call us at
Thank you. Well, we're back and we're talking to Tara Farah. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Well, I always tell people it's like the car, but leave off the I, Farrar.
Oh, Farrar. Tara Farrar. Well, Tara, before you tell us your example, I want to also mention that if you have questions, you can write them on the side panel. And I do see that several people have asked. Cher says, good afternoon. And she says, can you share both positive and negative experiences that you've had? And Rebecca Kimball says, glad you joined us. Interesting concept. So tell us about your story, and then we will continue with this. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, the story I wanted to share is we're all familiar with the Subway sandwiches. And the spokesperson, Jared, that they had for many years, well, it turned out Jared not only was a pedophile, he also was selling material. And when the warrant was served, they brought in one of the first canines to have been trained. And his name is Bear, so he's Agent Bear. And Bear actually was the one who found the material.
Wow, good for a bear. We need more bear dogs. Okay.
Well, and
So-
he went on to serve many years as an agent, and he is now retired. He's a retired canine agent. And so, to answer the question about the negative, I'm not sure where you want to talk about that. But Stephanie, I'll just turn it over to you, and you direct where we go.
Well, I think I can't see any real negatives to this. I see a lot of positives because those chips are so small that no human would ever find a chip like that. And the positive is that dogs have this incredible sensitivity with their nose, and they can find it for us. I noticed that you also have canine agents. Are those people that work with the dogs, or they're trained with the dogs? How does that work?
The agents refers to the dogs. They are designated as canine agents.
Oh, okay.
They have their special little dog vests that they wear. And some of them even have their badge that hangs from their collar around their neck. And they're known as agents. So they serve on either sheriff, state patrol, police. Those are typically the three divisions that will have a unit specifically for internet crimes against children. And it's important to emphasize the internet crimes because what we have, these agents sit in front of their computers, going into the dark web, going into the chat rooms, pretending that they are a child so that the trafficker or the pedophile will make contact with them. And what they're doing is they're gathering the IP address that those individuals are on. And once they gather enough evidence, then they can get the warrant, and then the warrant can be served, and the canines are brought in to smell out the electronic devices that contain the evidence for the conviction and the imprisonment. So they are an agent, part of an important task force.
Well, I think they are. Absolutely. Now, how does, for example, as I said, here in Las Vegas, I don't know that anybody is trained for this. So how does one get trained so that they can bring a dog into this area? How does that work?
Well, there needs to be an ICAC task force somewhere in your case, in Las Vegas, whether it be the sheriff, state patrol, the police. They need to have a unit, a task force unit, because they're trained. They're officers that are specifically trained with regards to internet crimes. And then the dogs can be acquired and added to that team.
Okay, so do they go someplace, a central training center for dog and handler, or?
Well, if there's anyone out there who's a part of any of these law enforcement agencies, there is a national ICAC website, and one can find out all about that. You can just Google Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. There's a national site. It talks all about the training, the material, etc.
Okay, I'm writing that down so I can share it with some of my fellow people that are concerned about the sex trafficking here in our community. And it's not just in Las Vegas.
No,
What happens here stays here, but that's also across the country, which is so sad.
Well, like I said a moment ago, it's a $150 billion a year industry. It involves over 2 million children. And what is sad, the United States is the largest consumer of internet material.
Okay, from your experience, Tara, why do you think we are such consumers of this kind of material, which is so detrimental to children? What do you think happened here?
Well, my research, Stephanie, is indicating that a consumer, we'll have to say it that way, a consumer of the content. So the consumer has two divisions. They begin with online content, looking at pictures and watching videos. It's all part of an addiction.
Yeah.
So as that addiction is fed, then they want more, and then ultimately viewing it is not enough. And that's when they become a contact consumer. And that's when they physically purchase time with a child to have that contact. So it goes, the foundation is an addiction. And why the addiction? Well, we can look to a lot of other kinds of addictions as to why there's the addiction. I have spoken to girls that are now young women, adults, who were trafficked, and they said a lot of it has to do with power and control.
Yes. You know, I interviewed a man by the name of Armand King, and he was a trafficker at age 16.
Mm-hmm.
And in his community. And now I am hearing more stories of kids in high school trafficking their friends. So how do we get this message out to every parent that your kids are in danger if you don't have a discussion with them and talk to them about this?
Well, that's a great question. And it begins with education, for one thing, like the canines being the messenger of the message, bringing the awareness to people of the size of this crime and what is going on. In a little while, I think you're going to provide the address of where people can pick up a free report that provides the 6 tips on what we as adults can be looking for to determine if there is some form of trafficking going on. And so it itemizes what to look for. To any parent, I would say it's imperative that you are in control of your minor's phone. You know what apps they have on there. If they have any password protected files or apps, you need to know what those passwords are. You need to check their phone on a regular basis, seeing what kind of conversations they're having. Because there are traffickers that are known as Romeos, and that would be some of the teenagers you're referring to. So they will go into social media, they watch, they know how to watch for certain signals and signs, and then they'll befriend a young girl. It's 80% of the children that are trafficked are women, girls, and the other percentage are boys. So it's predominantly the girls, and they'll say, "Oh, what a nice outfit you have on in that picture. Oh, I like your hair. Oh, I like this." And the girl feels like, "Oh my gosh, isn't this wonderful?" And they have a fake ID, of course. They've, a soccer player or a football player or whatever it might be. And then they keep grooming them and Romeoizing them. And then ultimately it's like, well, why don't we meet up? I'll meet you at the mall. I'll meet you at the arcade. I'll meet you in the park, whatever it might be. And then from there, the girl is like pulled in. And a sad example is 2 young girls. They were, what were their ages? 12 and 14, cousins. Walked from their house down to the Dairy Queen, which they did all the time. And a car came along and said, "Oh, we're friends of so-and-so." And they knew the right names to use. "We can give you a lift." The girls got in the car. They were taken to a house that had bars on the windows. The doors were locked, and they were immediately beaten and tortured. And fear was instilled upon them, and they were trafficked at truck stops. And fortunately, a trucker saw what was going in, called the hotline. and a big sting operation went down, and the girls plus 6 others were saved. So you just never know. It can seem innocent to the child, but it's not innocent.
You know, all of us have to be much more aware of our surroundings, and we need to encourage our kids to get off the phones, not on, you know, and look at their own surroundings and be aware of those surroundings, because, you know, this can happen to children being snatched. In my work as a crime and violence prevention consultant, I have seen and heard about kids being snatched right off the street corner, or, you know, as they're walking down the street. So please, parents, encourage your kids to stay alert. Now, I understand do you have a slide or something you'd like to show us?
Well, I've been kind of looking at that here, and why don't we just skip over that, because I
Okay.
did have some slides to show you, but some of the information we've already covered, and I wouldn't want to take the time to get to the right slide.
Okay. We can just, because I'm glad we've covered it. Anything else you would like to cover before we, you know, sign off? How would you like to end this?
Well, what I'd like to do is allow people to see, let's see, what are we going to do here? So here are the various canines. There's more than this, but currently throughout the United States and the states that there are in. That's more about the ICAC and how I got into this. But here's what I wanted to show. This is the top 6 tips to save kids. And this is where you can go pick it up. And so it's canines with an S, caninesavingkids.org. And the canine is the letter K and the number 9. S, savingkids.org. And I also want to show the hotline number. If you see anything, if your gut tells you something is off, here's the hotline number to contact, the text message you can use. You do not want to approach the child that may possibly be trafficked, because I guarantee you their trafficker is nearby, they're watching, and great harm will be imposed upon the child once they remove them from the situation, because they'll, again, instilling that fear, not wanting the child to even look at anybody, to talk to anybody. And there's potential harm for you as well. So make sure you either call your local authorities or use this hotline or text message.
You know, some of our other guests have given us a tip about a child giving a signal with their hand behind their back. Are you aware of that? Which, you know, I think it's like this, you know,
Right.
and would you agree that you should back off or just report it, or
You need to back off. They're giving you a signal. Yes. So what you can do is back off and observe. They always have a male companion that's usually older with them. Sometimes it can be a young man in his 20s, but just back off and watch when they leave the store, for example, and they go out to their car. What car are they in? Get the license number, call authorities immediately so that they can step in. It's too dangerous for you and the child to try and grab them and pull them away.
Right.
It's just too dangerous. Keep in mind that the traffickers are seeing this child. One trafficker reported that he was earning $30,000 a month.
It's disgusting. It's just disgusting.
And so for them, it's a job. For them, it's a career. And if you take that child away, they get very, very angry because you're taking away their income source. I'm not talking about values. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm wanting you to understand what's going on in the trafficker's mind, and they will defend their property. That's how they look at the children, that they are property.
Right.
They will go to any means to defend their property. So you need to safeguard yourself, make the phone call. Even if you're not sure, follow your gut, make the call.
You know, that's such an important information because, you know, I wrote a book and I want to show it to you. And this is about how to empower your child from the inside out, because parents can't always be there for their kids. So you want to help your child be strong within themselves. This is how to raise a resilient children who become happy, self-reliant adults. And kids are very smart if you give them the right tools so they know how to take responsibility. And they need to speak up if they're not happy about a situation. They need to stand their ground. They need to scream if somebody approaches them. And we need to really talk to our kids and build more trust between parent and child by actually working with our children, because all of this can be stopped. It's going to be a huge enlightenment for all of us, because this has to stop. This is craziness. Any final thoughts that you want to share, Tara?
I would say have your antenna up wherever you go. Now that I know what I know, whether I'm out for a walk and I now observe the children in the neighborhood totally differently. If I'm at the store, the grocery store, whatever, I'm observing the children's behavior in the store unlike anything I've ever done before. So be observant, be mindful. And one of the things about the young girls is they tend to dress and look older than their age.
Yes.
Their makeup, their jewelry, their clothing. And in the past, without the proper information, we may have judged, oh, look at that little girl. She looks like a tramp. Oh my gosh. You know, we'll make those kinds of judgments. We may be looking at a child that's being trafficked. And because of the fear that gets instilled upon them, and this was told to me by a young girl, is they knew where my family lived. They knew the members of my family. I had to do what they told me to do because they told me that they would injure them or kill them. I had no choice. I had to do this. Mm-hmm. So we can't rely on the child to speak up because they're full of fear.
Of course, of course. Well, I want to thank you so much. And Rebecca Kimball says here, Tara, thank you. And thank God for this information. Always a member of your fan club.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much. We'll pick up the report so you also can become more aware of what to look for. And of course, the hotline phone number is on that report as well.
Well, thank you so much, Tara. And we'll keep in touch. And keep us abreast of how your project is going. And we'd love to hear from you in the future. So thank you.
Well, my pleasure, Stephanie. Thank you for carrying the torch.
We'll do the best we can. We got to save these kids and we can do it.
We can.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, you know, all of us have got to be more involved with being observant where we are. Tara said, you know, in the grocery store, I mean, this is such a huge problem and it's a growing problem. So all of us have to be much more aware of what's going on around us. And I will look forward to seeing you next week. And if you want to know what's on our agenda for next Wednesday, all you have to do is go to our website, safekidsnow.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future. So take care and peace.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website, www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio.